So today I want to talk about adopting a freedom mindset. You know, I have had the opportunity of traveling around the world and helping a lot of different people. And one of the most common questions, of course, is how do I overcome these debilitating emotions, anxiety, worry, stress, guilt, jealousy, and all these other negative, toxic emotions and thoughts that so many people literally struggle with. And many times when people come to me, they say, would you be able to coach me? Would you be able to help me out? And I said, I'd be glad to help you out. But then they ask me, not uncommonly, they ask me, so what's your approach to this? Like, is this based on a particular book? Is it based on a particular author or speaker? And or is it based on a religious belief? Is it based on the Bible or some other spiritual text? Does it align with such and such a pastor? Does it align with such and such a psychologist or such and such a spiritual teacher? So they have all these different questions. And of course, in that very question is really the problem to begin with. What I mean is that if a person is struggling with anxiety, if a person is struggling with the stress and these plethora of negative emotions, it's all rooted in fear, right? Fear is at the bottom of it. So on one hand, they're asking me these questions because they want to make sure that they can trust the process. And I appreciate that. I understand that. But on a deeper level, the question is actually rooted in fear. There's an element of anxiety. And I find this, especially the more anxious people are, the more they're concerned about the process because they're just so afraid that somehow or another it's not going to work for them. And so then the very first thing that I need to do to help a person is to reframe their mindset and to adopt a freedom mindset. That's the only way they can even begin the process. Most people reject any kind of help. They don't want to be helped, even though they do want to be helped, but they want to be helped their way, right? They want me to say, well, listen, I want to help you the way that you already know how to, the way that you already have thought this would be helped. But the problem is if that would work, then you probably wouldn't come to me to begin with, right? Because you already tried it out. They have already tried it out and it didn't work for them. So the point is this, that embedded into the question is fear. So how do you then reframe the mind? I think Jesus said it the best. Now, if you're not from a Christian background, that's okay, but I think that there's a principle here that you would agree with. He said something very, very powerful. He said, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. So here is a dilemma. If you are not free, quote unquote, if you're not free from anxiety, from worry, from stress, from guilt, from fear and insecurities, all these negative emotions and thoughts, if you're not free, then the only logical conclusion based on what Jesus said is that you're missing something about the truth, right? You don't know the truth. Now, we can get into analyze what Jesus actually meant, but that's not the point of what I'm talking about here. The point is that you got to begin by acknowledging that there is something missing in my life. And then there has to be a desire to know the truth. So for me, when I went through my own personal journey, which is our coaching program is based on, my own transformation, how I went through it, and then helping people over the last number of years, I've come to learn, and that's how we base this program. And, it's based on the way of love, what we call the way of love, and becoming aware of this, this transcending love that permeates the universe. That's really the basis for how we help people. And the point is this, you have to be open and willing to be free. So what I did, I actually said, I asked God, and if you don't believe in God, you can ask the universe or ask whatever. Just send the signal out there, whatever. But you have to start with this basic principle. God, I want to know the truth, no matter where it takes me, because I want to be free more than anything else. Now, of course, when you ask that question, you're going to be bombarded with all kinds of fearful thought. It's going to bring up anxiety, right? Well, what if you are misled? What if you are led astray? Like my Christian background said, well, you want to be careful that you don't get led astray by all kinds of strange things. Well, Jesus also said, if you ask God for a good gift, He will give it to you. He's not going to give you a bad gift. So to me, I'm asking for a good gift. And, even if you're not Christian, as I said, it doesn't matter. You can still ask for the same thing. Ask the universe, ask the source of life, ask whatever, ask of yourself, that you will know the truth. Because I believe that if you know the truth, and the word here for know is to be aware, if you're aware of the truth, then you will be free. You'll be free from the anxiety, from the worry and the stress and all these other emotions. So how can you know the truth? Well, there is another problem. And I think if you ever watch A Few Good Men, a movie from quite a few years ago, so it's kind of dating me a bit, but it's this movie with Jack Nicholson and Tom Cruise, and there was this court case, a military court case, and anyhow, Tom Cruise is pressing the character of Jack Nicholson, and basically Jack Nicholson, he responds and says, "You can't handle the truth." And there is something to that. Most of us are not capable of handling the truth because we already believe that we know the truth. Now, we have convinced ourselves that we know the truth. We have the monopoly of truth. But if we're not free, then there's something missing about the truth. But we don't ever even want to go there, because if we go there, then our sense of self is at stake. Our sense of identity, who we are, because we are identifying with our thoughts. We are identifying with our beliefs. This is who we are. We created labels about who we are based on a set of thoughts, a set of beliefs that we have accumulated over our lifetime. It began in childhood. We were conditioned since childhood by different thoughts, and that has created a sense of identity, who we are on a very, on a thought level. And so when someone comes and tamper with what we believe, it creates incredible insecurity in us. We become very, very afraid, and we resist it. We say, no, I won't accept that. And that's why often you have to come to the point where you say, man, I don't care anymore. I'm so desperate. I want to be free. So if you're at that point where you say, listen, I'm like feeling so overwhelmed, so, I can't handle this anymore, you're in the right spot, because this is the moment you can say, listen, I want to know the truth more than anything else, because I want to be free. And that's when I'm talking about having a freedom mindset. That's what I'm referring to. But you have to understand that, as I said before, we don't really want to know the truth, because there's a term that I think it's, a common scientific term is motivated reasoning. In other words, that because of all the things that you have learned over the years, there is a bias on how you see the world. There's a bias towards certain things. So for example, if you agree with something, you quickly like it on Facebook, but if you don't agree with it, you just dismiss it, or you unfollow that particular person, or whatever the case may be, right? We want someone to affirm what we already believe, rather than telling us someone telling us that what we're believing is wrong. And this has become so accentuated even more so because we do not only identify with a certain belief, but we also identify with a certain group of people. And our need to belong to that group is sometimes so powerful that it's very hard for us to actually consider a truth that our group doesn't declare. So you see this politically, for example. I mean, people have such varied opinions, especially here in the United States. If you're Democrat or Republican, you just see things so differently. Because, most of us, we're listening to propaganda news. We're not actually listening to the news. If you're on one side, you listen to one propaganda station. If you believe in another thing, you're watching another propaganda station, or you're following something else on the internet, or whatever it is, you are naturally drawn to follow that which you already think to be true, right? So we are not seekers of truth. That's the point. We're not seekers of truth. We really don't want to know the truth. We just want someone to tell us, hey, listen, what you believe is the truth. But then we struggle with anxiety, with fear, with all these insecurities and this plethora of emotions, and sometimes we hide them, and we don't acknowledge them, and we pretend that everything is fine, and in order to somehow or another control our world, but it's all rooted in fear. And so that's why I'm going back to the same thing. The starting point to freedom has to be a honest and heartfelt declaration. I want to know the truth that sets me free. Even if everything that I believe will have to crumble, I still want to be free more than anything else. That's the starting point. So what is that truth? What does it mean to know the truth? And how can I know that I've actually, come to know the truth? Well, obviously, the last question is easy to answer. You could, if you follow Jesus' teaching, he said, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." So freedom, when you're free, then you know you have discovered the truth. So here is what I'm suggesting to you today. This is what happened in my own life. I remember at one time, many, many years ago, I was a minister. I believed I knew the truth. I knew, I was a proponent of it. I spoke about it. I declared it. I spoke to hundreds of thousands of people about it. But inside I was struggling. Inside I was dealing with a plethora of negative emotions, and I wasn't free. And one day I met this guy on the golf course, and I was trying to tell him all the things that I believe and share my opinions. We're very quick to share our opinions and share what we believe. We want everybody to convert to our way of life, which somehow or another makes us feel better about ourselves, right? So we want other people to convert to our way of life because it enhances my sense of self and makes me feel like maybe I'm right after all. This is on a very deep level. This is not something that we may necessarily consciously think of, but subconsciously, that's how we feel. That's how we think. So I met this guy, and I played golf with him for 18 holes, or 17 holes, because I wasn't even wanted to play with him, but that's another story. You can read about this in my book, by the way. But anyhow, so I started sharing with him, and I noticed that this guy was so caring and loving and compassionate. The way he spoke had this profound effect on me. And when I tried to tell him that he wasn't free, he came across more free than I did. And it really troubled me because I thought, you know what, I'm dealing with all this crap, and sorry for the expression, but you know what I'm talking about. I'm dealing with all this junk in my life, and I'm not free. But he is. He certainly seems to be free. I don't know what's going on, of course. If I get to know him closer, maybe he's not as perfect as he comes across, but there was something about him that really, really kind of just spoke to me. But he didn't believe like I did. But there was a genuine care and love and compassion that this man had that had a profound impact on me. And afterwards, I started thinking about this. I was there to tell him what I thought was to be the truth, but he exhibited more freedom than I did. Maybe I had missed something about the truth. Maybe I had assumed that the truth was a set of beliefs, a set of thoughts. Remember, beliefs is just a set of thoughts, right? It's a set of thoughts about, your life and what the future holds. It's based on something that can be based on, it can be based on a plethora of things. But it is still a set of thoughts. And what I came to conclude was that the truth is something much deeper than just a thought. Because after all, we all have different thoughts. We all have various thoughts. So then it becomes my thoughts versus your thoughts. But maybe truth is something beyond your thoughts when you actually begin to awaken to your true essence. You are spirit, as it says in many spiritual texts, or a more common word that we use today is consciousness. At the very core, you are consciousness. And when you awaken to your true self, your consciousness, the very presence, when you let go of the thoughts, when you basically come into that point of the space in between the thoughts, and you just become aware of self and your connection with everything, I believe that's the truth. That's an element of coming to truth. Why do I believe that? Because that is the point of freedom. It was a point of freedom for me, and as I've helped people around the world, I've discovered that when they actually come to that point, when they begin to become aware of something beyond thoughts, when their thoughts are no longer running from something in the past, or projecting something onto the future, or going through the pain of the past and feeling anxious about the future, once you're just at that point of just awareness of this presence that permeates with love, unconditional love, then you are free. Now, we're going to talk about in weeks to come here, we're going to talk about what all of that means. But the first step, and here is the point, the first step to be free is adopting a freedom mindset. And that freedom mindset is a passion, a desire to know the truth, to know it. And if knowing the truth is something complicated, something difficult, and something hard that you have to have a PhD for, well, that would not be very fair, would it? But if knowing the truth is just coming to that point where you become aware of this presence within you, I think all of us can experience that freedom. And I speak for myself, and I speak for a lot of people that I helped over the years. Once you can come to that point, you'll experience a freedom like anything ever before. And I'll talk more about it in weeks to come. Anyhow, let me know your thoughts. And if this has helped you in any way, make sure to share this video with your friends on social media. I love to hear from you. Make sure you leave your comments. Check out our website, davidyoungren.com. Thank you very much.